Rain drummed against the hood of Ethan's old van as he climbed the marble steps of the Hart mansion, clutching a small delivery box. He was late again, but what waited beyond those gilded doors would stop his heart. The butler barely looked at him when he entered, just pointed toward a table in the vast, echoing hall. Ethan stepped forward and froze. There, beneath a chandelier of crystal fire, hung a portrait. The smile. The birthmark. Eyes. His wife's eyes. His throat locked. Where did you get this painting?" he whispered. A woman's voice cut through the air, sharp, controlled. "That's my sister, Evelyn Hart." "Who are you?" Ethan's breath hitched. "No, that's my wife, Anna Cole. She's been dead 3 years." The woman's face drained of color. For a moment no one moved. Then she whispered, trembling, "That's impossible." And in that silence, something shifted, the air thick with secrets buried too deep to stay hidden. What Ethan discovered next would rewrite everything he believed about love, loss, and truth. Stay until the end. Like, share, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales for the story you'll never forget. The silence in the Hart mansion was the kind that made every breath sound like a confession. The woman who stood before Ethan, impeccably dressed, voice trembling beneath layers of authority, was no stranger to power. But the way her eyes flickered between him and the portrait betrayed something deeper than shock. It was recognition. "Who sent you here?" she demanded. "Crown couriers," Ethan said. "I just deliver packages." He swallowed hard. "But that woman, that's my wife." Her composure cracked. The clipboard in her hand trembled. For the first time in years, Eleanor Hart, CEO of Hart Biologics, one of the wealthiest women in Canada, forgot how to hide. "Marcus," she whispered to the guard. "Escort him out." But Ethan didn't move. "No, not until you tell me why my wife's face is on your wall." The guard advanced, boots echoing against the marble. Ethan's voice rose, rough, breaking with disbelief. "Her name was Anna. She died 3 years ago. You can throw me out, but I'll still know something's wrong here." That was when Eleanor's expression changed. It wasn't anger. It was fear. She whispered, "Is she alive?" That single question rewrote the room. Ethan's voice faltered. "What?" "Evelyn Hart," Eleanor said slowly. "My sister. She vanished 13 years ago." The marble beneath Ethan's feet felt unsteady. Every truth he thought he knew began to tilt. The delivery bag slipped from his shoulder and hit the floor with a hollow thud. "She told me she had no family," he murmured. "Said the past didn't matter." Eleanor's eyes glistened. "She said the same when she left us." That night, Ethan couldn't shake the image of Eleanor's face. The disbelief, the grief, the hint of guilt she didn't try to hide. He barely slept. The rain outside his apartment pressed against the windows like whispers of questions he couldn't answer. By morning, he was sitting at the kitchen table with his son, Lucas, watching him spoon cereal and hum to himself Anna's song. Lucas looked up. "Daddy, you okay?" "Yeah, buddy," Ethan said, forcing a smile. "Just tired." But his mind was racing. If Anna, Evelyn, had been born into that world of wealth and glass chandeliers, why had she chosen a life of delivery schedules and late rent notices? What had she been running from? The phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. "Mr. Cole." The voice was steady but quiet. "Eleanor, we need to talk." When he arrived at the Hart mansion again, the security gates opened without question this time. Eleanor met him at the door herself. No assistant, no guards. She looked different, her power softened by exhaustion. "I've had investigators searching for Evelyn for over a decade," she said. "But I never thought I'd find her like this." She led him through a corridor lined with portraits, each ancestor more polished and lifeless than the next. "Our family built everything on image. Appear perfect, no matter the cost." She paused in front of a window overlooking the garden. Evelyn hated that. When she was 22, she fell in love with a man who worked construction near our property. "My mother called it disgraceful." "She threatened her?" Ethan asked. Worse, Eleanor said. She tried to have him arrested. Fabricated charges. Evelyn disappeared 2 nights later. Ethan stared out at the rain streaking the glass. She never told me. Never mentioned your name. She was protecting you, Eleanor whispered. My mother, she would have destroyed your life. The days that followed blurred together. DNA tests confirmed the impossible. Lucas was Evelyn's nephew. Eleanor's reaction was heartbreak and relief tangled into one. But that revelation woke something dangerous inside the Hart empire. Within days, tabloids sniffed the story out. Heir's secret child found living in poverty. Reporters swarmed Ethan's small apartment. Cameras flashed through the night. Strangers shouted questions from the sidewalk. Ethan's supervisor at Crown Couriers called him in. Look, Cole, I know you're a good worker, but this... He gestured to a newspaper photo of Ethan carrying Lucas. This is bad for business. I didn't ask for this, Ethan said. I know, his boss sighed. But people upstairs want you gone. Take the week off. Maybe longer. Unemployed. Again. Because of a world he never asked to touch. Meanwhile, Eleanor faced her own war. In the Hart boardroom, a dozen executives circled her like sharks. You've jeopardized the company, snarled Richard Alden, her late mother's lawyer and longtime advisor. This delivery driver and his son are a scandal waiting to happen. Eleanor's tone was ice. They're family. Illegitimate, he snapped. Do you know what happens to the stock price when the media learns your sister faked her death and married a man from the slums? The room buzzed with murmurs. Eleanor slammed her hand on the table. Enough. Evelyn was not a mistake to be erased. And neither is her son. Richard smirked. You sound sentimental. Dangerous trait in business. Her gaze hardened. You sound like my mother. That earned a flicker of discomfort, but it was gone in seconds. Watch your tone, he said, or the board will vote you out. That night, Eleanor called Ethan. Her voice trembled for the first time. They're coming for Lucas. They want custody to protect the family name. Ethan's blood went cold. They can't. They can try. And they will. The next morning, a black car waited outside his building. 2 men in suits handed him a legal envelope. Petition for temporary guardianship. The Hart estate. Lucas watched from the window, clutching his toy dinosaur. Daddy, who are they? Just people who don't understand what family means, Ethan said quietly. He drove straight to Eleanor's office. You said you'd protect him. I'm trying, she said. But Richard's manipulating the board. He claims you're unstable, unfit. Unfit. Ethan's voice cracked. I raised that boy alone while your world forgot his mother existed. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. That's why we'll fight. Together. The fight began with whispers and ended in headlines. Richard leaked selective evidence. Photos of Ethan's modest apartment, rumors of debt, even forged medical records claiming unfit living conditions. Social media turned it into spectacle. But Eleanor fought back, using every resource she had. Her legal team filed countersuits, demanding a full audit of the Hart estate. The deeper they dug, the darker it got. Shell companies, embezzlement, bribery. And every trail led back to Richard. When confronted, he laughed. You think you can expose me and keep your empire? You'll burn with me, Eleanor. Remember who taught you the game. Eleanor's response was calm, almost gentle. You're right. You did teach me. And that's why I know how to end you. The next scene unfolded under blinding press lights. Eleanor called an emergency shareholder meeting, broadcast live. The room glittered with power. Journalists, investors, cameras rolling. Ethan stood at the back, holding Lucas's hand. Eleanor stepped onto the stage. Her voice carried through the hall. My sister, Evelyn Hart, vanished 13 years ago because this company treated her love as a stain. She ran to protect the man she loved and the child they would one day raise. Today I stand with them. Gasps rippled through the audience. Richard stood abruptly. This is madness. Eleanor turned, eyes burning. No, Richard. Madness is hiding fraud under the name of family honor. She tapped the screen behind her. Documents appeared, transfers, offshore accounts, all bearing his signature. This man embezzled $40 million from the Hart Foundation, she said, and used private investigators to track my sister after she fled. The night she disappeared. He was the one who delivered my mother's threats. Security moved. Cameras flashed. Richard lunged for the mic, shouting, "She's lying!" But Ethan's voice cut through the chaos. "She's not." The room fell silent. Ethan walked to the front, holding an envelope. "These are letters Evelyn wrote. She never mailed them. They were hidden in her things. In one, she mentioned you by name." He read aloud. "Richard says he'll ruin him if I don't leave. He says love is weakness. But love is the only truth I have left." The hall erupted. Richard was dragged out as reporters shouted questions. Eleanor exhaled. Years of guilt and grief collapsing into one breath. Days later, news broke nationwide. Richard Alden arrested. Fraud and coercion charges filed. Ethan watched the broadcast in his small apartment. Lucas curled against him. Eleanor had resigned from the company, donating her shares to a children's charity under Evelyn's name. When she arrived that evening, she looked lighter, freed. "You did it," Ethan said. "No," she replied softly. "We did." She did. Evelyn's truth finally broke the walls. Lucas ran up and hugged her waist. "Aunt Eleanor, can we go see Mommy's tree tomorrow?" Eleanor smiled through tears. "Of course." The next morning, they visited the cemetery together. The sky was pale blue, wind moving through the maple branches. Ethan set down fresh flowers. "You were right," he said quietly. "The truth always finds its way home." Eleanor placed a hand on the stone. "And justice always follows." Behind them, reporters' voices echoed faintly from car radios, talking about investigations, new leadership, reform. The empire that once hid Evelyn was finally crumbling under its own lies. Ethan turned to Eleanor. "So what now?" She smiled faintly. "Now we live. Not as ghosts of the past, but as what she wanted us to be." Lucas tugged their hands together. "Can we get pancakes after?" Eleanor laughed softly. "Yes, sweetheart. Pancakes." Morning light spilled through the window of Ethan's small apartment, touching the photo of Anna on the wall. For the first time in years, he didn't feel the weight of her loss, only the quiet strength she'd left behind. The truth hadn't broken him. It had rebuilt him. Eleanor's world of power and glass had crumbled, yet she'd chosen something real. Family, compassion, freedom. And Ethan finally understood. Love isn't measured by what you keep, but by what you protect, even when it costs everything. He glanced at Lucas playing with his toy dinosaur, laughter echoing through the room. The sound wasn't haunted anymore, it was alive. Outside, the maple tree swayed in the wind, its leaves whispering a name that no longer hurt. Some stories don't end with revenge. They end with peace, with the courage to begin again. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales, where truth, love, and courage always find their voice.